Okay, now we are here on the main stage. On the next activity, we will have with my friends from Australia, and I will pass here to Nigel Dalton. Please, Nigel.
Well, welcome everyone to the Down Under Lean Global Connection. And I'm Nigel Dalton. I'm the chair of the Lean Enterprise Australia team. I'm a director of the Lean Enterprise Institute, but that's in America. And today I have as guests, as part of this festival, two good friends, colleagues, amazing people from Australia and New Zealand who are here to talk with me about productivity, how they utilize lean thinking in their practice. I see both Tammy and Alex as the next generation of people starting to see the merits in this body of knowledge that we're all the champions of. And I just wanted to introduce them to our wider lean audience globally. And we've got 30 minutes to make that happen. So let's give that a go. Tammy, introductions. How do you fit into this kind of world of yours and mine?
Well, I was very fortunate to start working for a .com company back in 2010, I believe it was. And it was a wild introduction to initially what I thought was the most fun place I'd ever worked. But on top of that, I actually made some lifelong friends and made my mentor and lifelong friend Nigel himself, who taught me so many things about unlocking productivity, connecting with people, and optimizing performance in business. And I just started to kind of find a pathway that I thought, do you know what? This actually helps me to connect with people on so many levels and help things to make sense and be more meaningful. So I'm very fortunate that that's taken me all over the globe, including places like the United States, Australia, New Zealand. I've worked with teams all over the world. So very, very stoked to be here, Nige. Thanks for having me.
And a humble brag there, you're rocking the Twitter shirt, I see. How's that connection?
Well, should I be rocking it these days, or should it be an X, or just not at all?
Yeah, well, we'll hear more about that story as we go, I think, because Alex, you and I caught up very recently. You were in Australia, here in Melbourne, and I had the privilege of coming out to visit you at your work, which is a little more traditional, I think, in terms of lean practice. And I think a number of our audience would feel a lot more at home in your world than Tam's world. So tell us, what do you do? What's your job title there?
Operations Improvement Manager, which is, it sounds good. It is a good job. It's a great job. I love it. But it's also very broad, which is also another a good thing. So I work at a train maintenance facility down out at Pakenham here in Melbourne. We maintain a fleet of 70 trains. It's a relatively new site. We're still scaling up, getting the right numbers of skilled technicians and supporting them. And we're getting more and more trains into the fleet to service Melbourne. But that's and my job is basically to help our technicians achieve their objectives, which is to get through 2 trains services or inspections per day, so that we keep Melbourne running.
It is highly vital for those who don't live in Melbourne. You don't understand the politics of public transport in this town and the importance of trains and the very controversial reliability issues we've had, at least which have nothing to do with you, Alex. But yeah, an immense factory. If you can imagine 5 trains lined up in a factory, that's kind of the scale of what it's doing.
Big toys. I love it.
And I loved it. I loved wearing the hard hat that day, Tam. I'm not wearing a hard hat when I'm coming to visit you.
Yeah.
So I just had a really interesting discussion today with someone told me, just whatever you do, can you stop saying productivity? Because people immediately say, well, that's layoffs. And we're sick of 2023, post-COVID and layoffs. But Tam, productivity in your world, coaching teams, and a lot of software development, that kind of stuff. Is it a dirty word where you work? Do you use the term productivity or something else?
I think it's a very overused buzzword. And unfortunately, with that comes a lot of spin-offs and entrepreneurs on, different platforms trying to optimize and sell productivity. But the reason that it is a bit of a buzzword is because people kind of don't really know what it's about. They don't know how to measure it, and they also don't know how to implement it. So I think it's something that I tread very lightly with. Performance and productivity, I usually would couple together. But if I'm going to help somebody to become more productive, we'll have some very clear measures on what that means and what it looks like and why. Yeah.
Right.
I view it as a way to gain more freedom. Sorry.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. Alex, your place, productivity has got all sorts of dimensions. It's very measurable. How do you use that phrase in your everyday language?
We don't use the term productivity, but we definitely use the term efficiency and waste. But it's really important that how you communicate and use those words and how you define them. Because if you say waste to a blue collar worker, he thinks you're talking about them. Oh, I'm the waste. I'm like, you're not the waste, dude. It's in the work. It's in the processes. It's built in. It's the stuff that slows you down and that you hate. We want to take that away and make your life easier so that, we can meet the customer's needs and get the trains out on time. So efficiency, I prefer. Again, that can be a contentious word, but again, you need to define it. It is measurable too, which is good. Certainly more measurable than productivity. That's sort of a bit of a catch-all phrase.
So it's a good point, actually, Alex. So
Yeah.
What is the core measure? Are you as simple as trains per day? Or what are the measures in your place that you're working to improve on?
For us, it's trains per week. So we have to get through 12 train examinations per week, ideally in a 5-day work week, Monday to Friday, across 2 shifts. We also have, so it's going to be sort of 1.5, 2 trains per day. But there's also the labour target. So we have sort of what was put forward in a contract bid to achieve versus reality, and reality is a lot higher. So we're working towards the contract bid number that got us the job in the first place. And so we measure it in terms of target hours versus where we're at and how we're closing the gap.
Right. And Tam, you don't have trains per day. Do you, in software, lines of code used to be a very controversial measure of productivity. I'm willing to guess you don't do that, but what do you do?
So there's a range of different methods and things that we can use. It does depend on what area you're focusing in. So if we're looking strictly in the engineering space, there's all sorts of different metrics that we can use, like the DevOps DORA golden metrics. You can use things like lead time. So from ideation into delivery into basically live into production. So there are a few different things, but again, if we're looking at product-based stuff, it's Net Promoter Score. It's a myriad of different things. I use a lot, actually, the 7+1 types of lean waste. So that's a big one for me. And I do believe a lot of the organizations I have gone in to work with don't actually go that far and wide with how they measure things. There's lots of things about, impressions and click data and, engineering and software terms, metrics that you can dig into, but a lot of people don't know how to measure. So
yeah, interesting. And Alex, actually something in common that you both have that I don't have is I would classify you as people who learn their craft in the work. I've done both, but I'm old, and I came to Lean very late through our friend Rich Donnell, who mentor and Lean sensei for both of Tammy and I. Does your time on the tools in surveying and in the field, is that an asset to you as a Lean engineer, thinker, improvement organization person now?
100%. Yep, absolutely. I was thinking about this before we sort of started. In my background, I was a power line surveyor for 10 or 11 years, working for a power and gas company before I made a career change within that company to become, a Lean and Six Sigma black belt and then a process improvement guy. Certainly in my time as a blue collar worker, I don't have this chip anymore, but I used to have a bit of a chip on my shoulder about management and white collar jobs. You know, they don't listen to us, and I've got all these ideas, and I can't get support to make it happen. Having experienced it from the white collar side now, I understand a lot of the constraints in place, but certainly as part of my job now, like, yeah, it takes me back to those days. I really like being on the shop floor with the guys, working under the train, in the train, on the train, doing the job, getting dirty, seeing it and experiencing, you know, the stuff they have to go through for myself. But also, you know, being the kind of, you know, white collar worker that my role is classified as, that I would want to have been working with me back when I was a blue collar worker. So yeah, I absolutely rely on those days and utilize what I've learned in that in my role.
I love your kind of the fact you're quite different in that you'll absolutely muck in Australian term, Kiwi term, like the tools that you've made for people and just getting shit done, basically, as we like to say. Now you have that in common with Tam as well, because Tam, you are very hands-on and quite innovative with how you've brought these conversations. And I've always loved your work around retrospectives and that learning loop. So and one thing we've never revealed is in common is I should go here, like my guitars, your keyboards, Alex is still in this room, great guitarist. So that was one of my, I'd love to hear the tale of how you brought learning in a different way and reflection. Tell us about that musical retrospective idea you had.
Yeah, so one of the things that I discovered was happening in these workplaces is, depending on what the culture was, there was definitely a culture of fear. If people spoke up, they might get fired. If layoffs were happening because of productivity, they might lose their jobs, so they needed to say all the right things. But it didn't mean that we were getting shit done. So when I would hold these retrospectives in what I would say highly toxic environments, or quite bureaucratic environments, I would be really struggling to actually get what was not working for these people. So you can't apply Kaizen if you don't know what's not working. But when we were running these retros, the walls were bare around what was not working. And I thought, there's got to be a way to connect with these people and break down this fear. So what could we all do? Well, we can all connect universally with music. And whether you listen to music in the home or not, you have memories and connections and vulnerabilities that are brought through music. So what I started to do was ask people the day before the retrospective to give me a song that best represented how they felt about the last sprint, which is 2 weeks worth of work, and what they really felt, how they really felt it went. And I would collect these songs and make a playlist and keep it very secret. I was the only one that could see. And when we arrived at the retrospective, I would play these songs through, and each of the team members had to guess who might have bought what song. So it was all in the titles, because before we'd even listen to the songs, I could read these titles and find what individual was in a world of pain, what team was overall in a very bad place versus the sentiment in another team who might be performing highly and quite happy. The song titles, some of them were Everybody Hurts by REM, On Top of the World. So I might get someone that's got Everybody Hurts by REM and On Top of the World by the Carpenters in the same team. And I'm going, well, why is this one person on top of the world and the other person is hurting really badly? So I used it as a vehicle to open up the vulnerability, to then discuss what was going on. And that's when we really started to make traction. So I've rolled out that at organizations like Twitter. I've got all the playlists curated on my Spotify, so you can actually go through them yourself for a look. It's fascinating, but it's also very inspirational. And it's, it's carried on through organizations that I've worked with.
Now, Alex, I didn't see a guitar out at your place, which is a shame because you are an excellent guitarist. And bizarrely, it was John Shook and you and I in this room with at one stage playing country songs. That was a lot of fun.
He's an amazing guitarist. He's awesome.
I am not humble bragging. I'm bragging now. My lean global connections, that's for sure. What sort of tools? What's your go-to thing around learning? within the train factory, I'm going to call it? What's your key? What's the main thing?
I try to do it in the workspace. So rather than pull people into a classroom and throw slides at them and put them to sleep, if I need to present any material, I'll print it and take it out, and we'll do it on the roadside, the maintenance roadside, where the trains are, or we'll do it in the train, like while people are working, and we sort of talk while people are working. I love that. It's a very like it consumes a lot of time to view a task in real time, but when you've got the butcher's paper up and you're taking notes from people and documenting the things they raise while you talk, that has been a great way to learn and also to teach and get things from people. And I must admit, I have brought music into the workplace. It was the first week of black belt training back in 2015, and we had to do like a presentation to introduce ourselves. And I've always been a guitarist and played in a few bands when I was many moons ago. But I brought in my amplifier and a Telecaster, and I played my own intro music for my presentation.
Yes.
I think it was like, it was sung by Link Ray. It's like, down, 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 real bluesy, walk-on music.
That's awesome.
That's the one time I've used music. I would actually love to use music as like startup music after the morning brief at work. Like when the guys move from the office, open the door into the shop floor, like play like a real like pumping like song that gets everyone going. But
probably AC/DC in this
something like that.
Love it.
So thinking about the work you've done with teams particularly, what are the constraints you see on productivity? What in your work, to software development, product development, that kind of digital stuff, what is constraining? Is it psychological safety? Is it policy? Is it constant, we can't do that because regulations and compliance? What is it, the culture of the organizations? What's constraining a continuous improvement kind of a spirit?
Absolutely all of the above. And it does depend on the industry that you're in. Some industries can be highly, highly regulated. There are a lot more rules and governance and policies that go with banking, with law, those sorts of things. So they can be quite hard to help to encourage change because of those, but also it's a big mindset thing. So these people who come from quite institutionalized organizations such as banking, they're very much stuck in the culture of that corporate world where you don't break the rules, you follow everything and that recipe works. So the exploration and all of that sort of stuff's not quite there in the same way that it would be in a different organization. I had a lot of constraints with things around like the creation of products, I guess, at Twitter, but the people themselves were so keen and ready for change. And so you can make change happen when you have the right minds and you have the right people. But I do find mostly the problems that I face is not around policies. It's around actually leaders being a handbrake. Where that's when I start to delve into a bit more around the management styles and the red flags of management and who's potentially being that handbrake and what fear it is that they're holding on to or what position they're trying to get themselves into. And it really does, once you can work with that, it does unlock a lot of creativity and problem solving within the teams themselves. Yeah.
And Alex, tapping into that Australian thing of and this is probably one of my key lessons from people have taught me a lot about lean is the Australian thing about it's above my pay grade. It's above my grade. It's a management job for doing safety. It's a management job to enforce improvement. Do you think that's a constraint in Australia? Have you come across that?
Sure, I have. It's funny you mentioned that. I as an anecdote, there was one of the texts was saying, I'm not paid enough to raise problems, and it's management's job to find out what the problem is. I'm like, dude, I'm aware of your salary. You earn more than me with overtime. like, come on. There is a little bit of that, but you always have people like that in any business. On on the whole, though, most people, if they understand what you're on about, then you're there to help them do their job more easily. Like, who doesn't want that?
Yeah.
It's interesting what Tammy was saying. Regulation in previous workplaces, that was definitely the case. A power and gas company, there's a lot of regulation. Electrical safety, gas safety. There's a lot of history in those companies, and there's a lot of people who've been there for a very long time. And often things generally go pretty smoothly, but there's always incidents as well that can inform their past. There are occasionally, serious safety incidents on gas and power networks, but also it's hard to make small changes. If you want to make a change on a gas network, it's going to impact like 1 million people in Sydney. So it's hard and it's slow to make change. At my current workplace, I love it. It's really easy to make change, and I'm supported to do that. And we have all the people we need to assess and work through the change impacts on site and within like 2 meters of my desk. It's great. So I really love
Okay.
that.
That's great.
Yeah, it is awesome.
Yeah, it's a good point, actually, Alex, because your workplace is remarkable for its visualization, like the actual map and model of the trains laid out on the entire massive 100-acre site.
Yeah,
we don't get that luxury anymore, do we, Tam? In terms of what tools are you using to get teams on the same page and improve their visual management? What's available for someone like you?
So I use there's a whole lot of things because of COVID. Obviously, people had to digitize quite quickly their tools. So interestingly enough, there are whiteboard companies that you call it a whiteboard, but they're becoming very I guess grown up with the selection of templates and things that they offer. So there are actually value stream maps, there are improvement catters, there are all sorts of different workshops and things like that we use to visualize the work to do with product and things like that. But it doesn't mean that it brings it to life. And that's the challenge. So for me, even just one of the key things is I have online etiquette. So obviously, when you walk into a room, there's certain etiquette that we would expect people to behave and demonstrate. Online, people are kind of a little sneaky, like we know you got your pajama pants on that bottom half, so, but at least put your camera on. And yes, 1 minute late does mean that people will notice that sort of thing. So I find that the more that we really work on optimizing the online engagement, it makes that world, the hybrid world that we're in at the moment, a lot more productive. So you have to be very, very succinct and very purposeful in what your agenda is, what the outcomes are. Unfortunately, those kind of sitting around the water cooler things disappear for you in your online because someone's sound craps out or someone's on mute, but you really do learn with the people, tools and processes that you have to make the best of those online things. And you get to record things like training sessions, which has been highly helpful for me to add to a visual library for when people are learning as well.
Right. Yeah. Alex, so I've talked about your visualizations. Are they a vital part of the running of the place?
So yeah, well, it's just easier. It does make work easier when you can visualize things rather than well, you can't. A lot of things you can't see at all, so you want to make those visual. But also using just text in place of pictures and visual representations just slows down things. And people at my site, I love operational sites because there's always a sense of urgency. And we were in a meeting today. It was our 1:30 daily pulse check on the status of our trains and the work on them. And I love the team leaders just blunt. They said, "This meeting has gone too long. You need to hurry up." And I'm like, "Come on." I said, "Yeah, you're right. It's meant to be a 10-minute stand-up. It's been 26 minutes. There's the agenda. We're not sticking to it. Let's get out of here." But yeah, visualization's key. And I'm definitely trying to do more of that, especially with our site. It's like I said, it's relatively new. There's a lot of things we're still setting up, but we've got first iterations in place, and there's just many more to come. And I'd love to make those much more visual. Rather than a train number, why don't we put an actual train, like a train magnet on a whiteboard with a number on it?
Yeah.
And
That's cool.
yeah, it's
All
things like
right. So
Yeah.
I might not have told you to, but we get $10 for every word we use from the lean lexicon in the course
Ooh.
of this talk today. Now, Alex, there was something you showed me that was the poker yoke out at your
Okay, sure.
place that I loved.
Oh
So
yeah, sure. Yeah,
tell
yeah.
us how you brought things like that, because that safety at your place, the voltage of that electricity, and
Yeah.
I don't know, they trains 100 tons or something like that.
God, 200 tons.
Yeah. How are you using tools like that to prevent incidents and
Yeah, well, so the example you're referring to was the lockout station or isolation lockbox, where so what that is, it's a standard industry thing for electricians and heavy trade workers. But basically, when our technicians work on the train, they have, first of all, to make it safe to work on the train, because we're opening panels up and getting right in there, we've got to turn on the electrical power off, but it's not enough just to turn the power off, because someone could come and just turn it back on. And if you've got your hand in a panel full of wires, when someone turns the power on, you're getting a shock. And it happens sometimes. Fortunately, we haven't had any at our site recently, but it happens. You hear of it happening. So this lockbox is basically a box that when you go to all the different electrical systems on the train, they have a designated lockout point. You literally apply a padlock, you take the key, you put it in the lockbox, and then every worker on that train applies their own personal safety padlock onto the lockbox. So no one can remove the keys to remove the locks from the energy systems on the train to energize it, until everyone working on the train has removed their personal safety lock. So there's a number of things that I love about that. Personal accountability for your own safety. It's an error-proof system, and it's got safety of people at heart. So it's a great way of using Poker Yoke to ensure that we look after people.
And Tam, for your $10, tell us how you've used Hoshin Kanri in a tricky and rather tense situation, if I might say so.
Yes. Yeah, so that's a very interesting tool, which I absolutely love, by the way, to help implement or to implement with executives. But it very much does surface that there is a lot of work and not a lot of people, that they have probably more misalignment than they realized in the first place, and that potentially they haven't quite thought about all of their ambitious goals. So I enjoy the tool very much, the Hoshin Kanri, but it also does surface a lot of things that you have to be prepared for, and somewhat, to the point where it becomes, it can become quite a stressful process, and you really have to stick with it and show the people that are using the Hoshin Kanri that it really will make sense. It really does work, but you really have to put in the work, and you really have to work together for it to happen. The catchball's gotta happen, and it does almost it can cause some interesting debates, can't it, Nige?
Oh, I think it does. It will out every element of your culture around psychological safety, and any weakness, Hoshin will find it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to wrap up with your one tip. Somebody like you, maybe 5 years ago, there's a better way with it. You both have this attitude of you're both curious. What's your one piece of advice to someone who may be seeing this and going, I should learn something about this lean stuff? What's a way of getting into it that you think's a good way to get into it, Alex?
Ooh.
Without doing a Six Sigma green belt, maybe.
Think about how it can help you, and curiosity is key. You've got to be willing to learn. But think about how it can help you and your colleagues. Reach out to people who have some experience in it. That's what I did, and that's how I ended up where I am. Thank you, Nigel.
Yeah, pleasure.
Thank you, Nige. Same here.
Yeah. So curiosity is key. There are plenty of resources out there, and you have to take the first step and go online. Look for something.
Well, as we, the number one thing I see for both of you is learner mindset. So even though you now know quite a lot in this field and apply it every day. You've still got to learn a mindset, which I love. And we're at time. So thank you so much for taking time out of your days. Alex, it's been a long day for you. Tam, you're just back from the United States. Huge day for you. Get back to that baby. And we'll look forward to seeing you both. And thanks for being part of the Lean Global Connection.
Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. I had a
Thank you.
blast. Thank you for having
Thank
us.
you, Dalton.
Ciao. See ya.
Bye. Bye. Ciao.